Good evening, everyone, and welcome. Thanks for joining us tonight. To have the best possible experience and to be able to follow along with our mixologist, we strongly recommend that you set your view option to speaker view. You can find that option at the top right of your screen. Today, Wine and Spirits, Wholesalers of America's very own Dawson Hobbs, will be joined by Troy Clarke, Director of Mixology and Spirits Education at Martignetti Company, who will be teaching you multiple variations of the refreshing summer sipper, Sangria. If you have any questions about techniques, substitutions, or mixology in general, please don't hesitate to use the Q&A button found at the bottom of your screen. We'll try to get to as many questions as possible. And with that, I will turn it over to Dawson.
Thank you. Thanks everybody for joining us. Some of you may have joined us for our inaugural Mixologist Minute, which was back just before Memorial Day. And here we are heading into the 4th of July weekend. And we thought that it would be a good time to give everybody a little update on what's going on in the world of wholesalers, and also to learn a new cocktail for the holiday weekend. I'd really like to thank Troy for coming on with us. He is a mixologist with Martignetti Companies in Massachusetts, and he spends his days educating bars and bar owners about new cocktails and helps them develop specialty drinks. And I'd like to hear, Troy, how are things going up there as I know Massachusetts moves through phase 2 and some of the restaurants and bars are opening up a little more?
Yeah, Dawson, thank you so much for having me back again. It's always great to be here. Things are transitioning. It's slow, but some real positive momentum as we move into that next stage. We have indoor dining going now. I've been working with a couple customers that are getting ready to open their first location. So that's always exciting that people are jumping into this and taking that risk and keeping with that dream of opening their restaurant. So still some exciting things happening, but just a little bit slower. But we're excited to see where things are heading.
That's great, Troy. So let's talk about that for a second before we get started. You know, our members, like the one that you work for, they bring wines and spirits from all over the world and all over America to the bars and restaurants, creating that important distribution hub that eventually creates all the choice for consumers. So when a new bar is opening up, what do you do to help them, make their own brand and be innovative? How do you help them in that process?
Yeah, that's a great question. So what we do is, we sit with the ownership and the leads on the project, and we kind of find out what they're trying to achieve. I'll go in and help them depending on what phase we get in at. This one happens to be brand new. So we're getting in right at the very beginning. We help them design their bar so that they can be as efficient as possible, understanding what type of restaurant they're going to be, what kind of beverage program they want to have. We pick whether it's going to be, 6 draft units, 8 draft units, 24 draft units, and the layout of each station, how much cooler space they're going to need, and then identifying back bar space, cocktail menu, wine menu, beer menu. So we really help them develop their entire beverage program and bring all those ideas to reality.
Well, that's great. I get to meet some wonderful people and have really great experiences with new and innovative ideas. Speaking of which, why did you choose the Sangria for today?
We were heading into the holiday, and I felt like the Sangria is one of those things that everyone loves. Maybe you have your own spin on it. If you're watching at home, you're like, oh, I make one, or my cousin or my aunt or my uncle makes one. I wish I could make one as good. And I felt like this is a drink that is really personal and allows people to really explore. And once again, it's like that Negroni when we were talking about it. There's no such thing as a bad Negroni. It's just not the one I want to make next again, right? And so today I'm going to give you some tips and tricks on how to make sangrias and kind of a little bit of the backbone behind the sangria, because I think it's something that anybody can make, no matter how big your skill level is in the world of making drinks.
Well, that's great. How should we get started? What's the first step?
All right, so a couple things we're going to need to start is first, before we start building the drink, we kind of have to think about what is the sangria? What is it, right? This goes all the way back into Greek and Roman times, and, they were doing this with their wine. And so The only thing you have to have in some form or way to make a sangria is some form of wine. You know, some people are like, oh, if you don't macerate it with Spanish wine or with this much fruit or these types of fruits, or if you don't put brandy in it, it's not a sangria. It's not a sangria if you don't use wine, right? And that's the one prerequisite. So you got to have some form of wine. So I think you have some wine, correct?
I do, and you had said I should infuse it, so I made a tea infusion, made a little sun tea with a ginger peach tea that I put in here.
Perfect. So talking about that is, yeah, I have some regular wine if I wanted to use, right? But what we're going to do is we're going to do a complete spin off that. You're going to make a little bit different than what I did. What I used is I took vermouth. Okay, and the reason I use vermouth is that all the work has already been done for me, right? It's already been infused. It lasts a little bit longer. It's got a little bit better shelf life, and I don't have to do as much infusion into it from a fruit standpoint, right? Because remember, what is vermouth? 75% wine. So as a wine base. So what I have done is I've already pre-infused my vermouth with a tea, just like you did with your wine. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to build this. Okay, now you can build it in a pitcher. I'm going to build mine in a tin. I'm going to show you a little bit different technique. Maybe you want to build yours into your wine glass because some of your work is already done there. And I'm going to show you why I'm doing what I'm doing. And what I did was I infused my vermouth. So I used a rosé vermouth, Otto's Athens from Greece. And I infused it with a tea from the Republic of Tea. And it's a pineapple, lychee, and hibiscus tea. And so what you want to do is based on a 750, okay, it's like 4 tablespoons of tea. And you do that for about 15 minutes. Super easy. Put it in, right in there, and then strain it out after 15 minutes. So we've already done that. So I'm going to take 3 ounces of wine. I'm going to make an individual cocktail. But if you're making, are you going to do a large form or are you going to do an individual drink?
I'm just going to do an individual drink in a wine glass.
Perfect. So let's do about 3 ounces.
Sorry, as we're all sitting here at home and some of us don't have our fancy jiggers at the ready to measure out our ounces, how are some ways we can measure ounces during COVID?
Measuring cups are a great tool. Usually everyone has them in their kitchen. And those are a great way to measure if you don't have any jiggers at home or anything like that. And at the end of the day, you know, with a sangria, you can be a little bit off if you're a little bit heavy on some things because, you know, you're making it for yourself. So not the end of the world, but you try to get as close as possible, especially when you're experimenting and you want to try to replicate it again. If you really like it, you know exactly what you did. So taking good notes when you make that first one, and then you just multiply it out for the batch. So you don't have to worry about if I'm making a larger format, do I have to cut other things down? You just multiply it by however many drinks you want to make. So it'll make it nice and simple. So now that we've gone ahead and done that, we're going to add a little bit of booze. And I know I'm excited for what you've done there. Do you have some Calvados?
Calvados.
All right.
My favorites.
Yeah. So we're going to do about an ounce and a half of your booze. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make mine, and I'm going to do 3/4 of an ounce of Absolute strawberry juice. Okay, so a little vodka in mine. And I'm going to use also a little bit of gin. I'm going to do some Monkey 47. So I'm going to do 3/4 of an ounce of that.
So that's interesting, Troy. A lot of people wouldn't think of mixing vodka and gin. They're kind of opposite sides of the coin. Is that something you like to do?
Well, you know, with these two products, I do like to use vodka and gin. One, it invites the vodka drinker in to experiment because sometimes, you know, people are like, I don't want brandy, or, you know, I don't want bourbon, or, you know, Calvados, or whatever it is, right? So I think this makes it more approachable for the vodka drinker, and they're the most loyal drinker in a category. So inviting them into experiment, I think, is important. And this one here is a strawberry infuse using, you know, fresh juice into it. And then Monkey 47 gin from Germany brings like nice texture and that depth, but not being too gin forward. I think it sits a backseat a little bit, but really adds some complexity to the sangria. So now that we've kind of added our alcohols, right? We have our wine base, and then we have some booze to kind of kick it up a little bit. We want to add some form of citrus, okay? The tea did all the infusion for us, but now we want to lengthen it out a little bit, and we're going to add some sweetener. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some pineapple juice, and I'm going to add some watermelon juice, and I have some right here. So I have about, I'm using Twisted Alchemy, which is a nice brand here. You can buy it online at twistedalchemy.com. They'll ship it right to your home anywhere in the country. And this juice is really good because unopened, it's good for 120 days. It's cold press, HPP, so it's done under pressure. The nice thing is if it's opened, you get about a week to use it, which is good. So do you have any juice going in your sangria there, Dawson?
Well, I wasn't juice, but I've got some blue agave sweetener, which I like to use.
Excellent. So why don't we go ahead and put somewhere around a 1/2 ounce to 3/4 ounce of that, and you can kind of taste it from there. I'm going to go ahead and put 3/4 ounce of watermelon juice, 3/4 ounce of pineapple juice, and then I'm going to do a 1/2 ounce of lime juice. I like the lime that's going to go in here with the watermelon. And then I'm going to add a 1/2 ounce of guava juice. I mean, not guava juice, guava syrup. And the nice thing about this is these syrups I'm using is made by Real. And you can also order these online, and they come in all different flavors: raspberry, pineapple, strawberry, because you don't want to be getting into trying to make all these things from scratch. So this is a nice option for people. A nice little guava. So this is a nice tropical rosé sangria that we're making here.
Troy, we have a quick question. The spirit that Dawson is using, what is Calvados?
Calvados. So it is it's a brandy in a sense, and it's made from France, and it's either made from all apples or apples and pears, and it's protected just like champagne is, right? So Calvados has to be made from the Calvados regions, okay? And there's certain laws that go into it. All right, so now that we have this, okay, and we've added all of our tea and our vermouth and our spirit and our sweetener, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do a quick shake on this. Why I like to shake it up a little bit for this version is I wanna add a little bit of that frothiness, okay? No ice, just a quick little shake. And if you're building it in the glass, this is a good time where you want to add some ice, okay? Maybe you have some fruit that you want to mix in there. You can do that too. All right. So now I'm going to take my glass and I'm going to add some ice to it. And the glass that you want to use, typically you see is a wine glass that we would use. You could have, you know, a double old-fashioned glass, you know, something like this. If you didn't have it, a tall wine glass. This is a stemless wine glass. Really, it's whatever you have available. You make your sangria in a pitcher, and you put it out for people to enjoy. Kind of the idea. So we're going to add some ice into this. Dawson, you got yours going already?
I do. Got it stirred up.
Right. Going. All right. Now, one of the other ingredients that we want to make sure we do is we want to add some bubbles to it. So I'm going to go ahead and you could add Prosecco, you could add champagne. I'm going to add a little bit of soda water. Some people add like ginger beer if they want, Sprite, 7-Up. I don't want to add any kind of like high fructose corn syrup or anything like that. I'm going to go really straight, super clean. I'm just going to add a little bit of bubbles, a little bit of soda water in there. Adds a nice froth to it. I'm going to mix that up, just a little effervescent. And then I'm going to throw in some garnish, okay? So I have some limes cut here. And I wash my pineapples so I keep the skin on. It looks a little prettier. So I'm going to throw some pineapples in there. If you had some strawberries, you could do that. And then tops of the pineapples, really pretty. We can throw them in. And there we go. We have
Oh,
our own signature rosé sangria.
that's pretty tasty. Cheers.
Yeah.
Troy, both you and Dawson made your sangrias in a glass. A lot of people are asking about batching. How long does it stay good for? When do you add the fruit?
That's a great question. So we're going to have a couple different variations. One, I'm going to have like a basic formula you can work off of that I'm going to share. We're going to have some modern variations, and we're going to do some classic variations. But basically, if you were using that, that classic variation where you would have your wine, you'd cut up your fruit based on the recipe, and you would let that sit overnight, maybe 2 days, maybe 1 day, go back to it, and now your fruit has been macerated, really broke down, you got all those flavors out. What I like to do is I like to tell people to take the fruit out and freeze it individually. You can use those as like ice cubes later, and then that fruit doesn't break down and get all nasty. And then you can build your sangria from there, build it right in the pitcher, and then you're good. And that sangria will be good for about a week or so. And then you have those pieces of fruit that you freeze, and you can use it later as like, ice cubes to help keep it cold on hot summer days.
Yeah, Troy, I made sangria over the weekend as a little practice. We had a block party in our neighborhood, and I made it Friday night in a big batch, and it was even better Sunday night than when we were drinking it on Saturday. So that really holds true.
Yeah, and the nice thing is that sangria is meant to be made with things that were left over. So if you looked in your cabinet and you had a bunch of different herbal teas and things like that, infuse it into the spirit that you want to use. That's going to give it more complexity, more flavor, and those are things that you like. Obviously, you enjoy drinking those teas. They're going to only enhance the product, right? It takes 15 minutes and adds real depth, and that cuts down on having to put more fruit into it to macerate, and then garnish with fresh fruit. So you bring that brightness and that bright acidity into your sangria, which will be really nice too. So a lot of different ways, maybe mixed berries, oranges, watermelon, cantaloupe, papaya, mangoes, whatever you can get on sale or real cheap is always a nice way. And sometimes I've seen people batch them inside a watermelon. Core it out, batch it all, leave it in there, and then serve it as a punch bowl.
So Troy, about using the bubbles, and I know one of the real popular things in the industry right now are these hard seltzers. Is that something you would ever use at a sangria?
Totally would use that. I think that adds great variety. You probably already have them stocked in your fridge. Maybe you got cherry, you got peach, you got pineapple, watermelon, whatever it is. It's going to add a little bit of flavor into it, which is a nice take too. And so maybe you have one less juice going in there, where I use 3 juices, maybe use 2 and use one of those flavored hard seltzers. I think that's a great way to add bubbles and flavor at the same time. Absolutely.
That's great.
And totally on trend. You'll be totally on trend with all your friends, right? Because everybody's drinking them, keeping their low-calorie options.
That's right.
Troy, we have another question for you. You answered what's the best length of time to infuse a liquor with tea. I think you said 15 minutes.
Yes.
But somebody's asking, what are other drinks that you can make with a tea infusion outside of sangria?
Oh, totally. You can do so many things. So, on the last call we did Negronis, you can do infusions with tea into your gin or your vermouth. You can pretty much, depending on what you're infusing it into, if you're infusing it into your gin, you can infuse that gin, and now you can make a cool gin and tonic. You can make a cool Tom Collins. You can make a cool sour. If you're using rum in your sangria and you infuse it, now you can make a fun rum mojito. So there's so many drinks that you can use. A flavored old fashioned. If you're using tequila, you can make a flavored margarita now. So there's a lot of variations that can happen. And the great thing about it is the tea infusion will not go bad. You may see the tannins drop down a little bit. Just shake it back up. It falls right back in, and your product isn't going to go to waste. So whatever you've infused, it will stand the test of time with you.
So, Roy, can you talk us through a variation here, or something we would do a little different to this?
Sure. So, if we're going to, for instance, like I'm using, I had gin and vodka, you had Calvados, maybe you infuse the we'll make a Tom Collins. Okay, I think that's a really great, light, refreshing style cocktail. So we infuse the tea right into the gin, the vodka. It could be whiskey, make a bourbon Collins. And so we take our tea, whatever flavor we have. So for instance, if I did that pineapple, lychee, and hibiscus, and I infuse it for 15 minutes, 4 tablespoons to a 750. What I do is I figure in around 3 to 5 pods for every 6 ounces. So if you want to use less, because these come into like little circles, okay, with the Republic of tea. That's why I like them too. And so I'll put like 3 to 5 of them for every 6 ounces of booze. 15 minutes, strain it, squeeze the tea bags out. And now I do 1.5 ounces of our infusion, 3/4 fresh lemon or lime juice, depending on what the spirit is. 3/4 ounce of, could be simple syrup, could be agave, could be honey. Maybe you have one of these nice flavors here where it's guava, lychee, pineapple, mango. Shake that up, and then I could use soda water. I could use Prosecco. I could use ginger beer. I could use any of those sparkling hard ciders if you want to pick a flavor that's already in what you're doing, or just a natural one. And there you go. Now I have a flavored Tom Collins that I can serve everyone that's coming over. Careful if you make those though, because they go fast. So you better hope you infuse enough alcohol for everyone.
Well, I agree with you, Troy. This is a great summer drink, and I think the only thing that I can't go without mentioning is the fact that right now there's tariffs on wine coming from Spain and France, and we're hoping that there's a review coming up in August, and we're hoping that the USTR will lift those tariffs because those wines are particularly suited to making a drink like this, and we'd hate to have it be a drag on what everybody's trying to do past August. So. Just really glad you could come on and talk to us about a wine drink, when that's something that I know a lot of people are reading about and looking at throughout the summer.
Yeah, and I think that there is that is one of the concerns that people have. But keep in mind, with sangria, it doesn't have to be a Spanish wine or a French wine or any of those. Use the domestic wines that you can find locally. Use domestic vermouths and different spirits and things like that, so you don't have to worry about those cost prohibiting factors during this time while these things are being worked out. And if you can get your hands on some great Tempranillo or Grenache and things like that, all the better. Sangria doesn't have to be made from red wine. You can do white wine and like Moscatos and Sauvignon Blancs and rosés. Everyone's drinking rosé right now. So many different options for people to use. And vermouth. Once again, if you only make it in small amounts where you're only making 1 drink at a time for people, you don't have to make a whole batch and worry about if it's going to go bad or not like that. So you can make 1 drink at a time.
So let's talk about the white sangria for a minute. If you're using something like a Moscato or one of those sweeter white wines, would you just lighten up on your sweetener and maybe use a little more of the spirits or something else to balance it out? Or
totally, yeah. So if you have a sweeter white wine, which I think is a really good conversation there, right? So if you're starting with a sweet white wine, you can add a little bit of more acid into it. So whether it be lemon juice or grapefruit juice or something that's going to bring a little bit more raciness to it. You could even cut it with, maybe you have Moscato and Sauvignon Blanc, bring the 2 together and then fall that recipe back. That's the great thing about, these kind of drinks is it really is open to interpretation, and don't be afraid to plug and play. As you saw, I use vodka and gin. So maybe there's 2 things you want to use in your white sangria. Maybe you want to put a little bit of tequila and mezcal. Maybe you want to put, as you look back here, maybe I want to do some rum. Maybe I want to do a white rum from one island and another white rum from another island and bring some different flavor into it. So you can really allow it to take on whatever group of people you're entertaining or what you really love to drink at home. That's what makes this drink so much fun to experiment with and to really cater to your guests. And that's what we all do every single day, is we're taking care of people. And that's what this drink is meant to do, is it allows to really dictate, the environment that we're going into for that barbecue over the weekend, or people are coming, or, you're celebrating or whatever it is. It really allows you those variations.
That's fantastic. Emily, questions?
No, we're actually out of questions. You kind of touched on the last one, which was what liquors go best with sort of a red sangria or a white sangria.
Yeah, it's almost, you know, that is a good question, what goes best. And I think that, you know, the darker the wine, sometimes you find the darker the spirits kind of lean towards those things. And that goes true to like thinking about classic cocktails. You know, the bourbon's really good with blackberries, right? But bourbon's really good too with like lemon and honey. So it's not a bad thing to take a white wine and put some bourbon in it, okay? You know, so it can be totally up to what's in your liquor cabinet and finding those complementary flavors. As you taste things, you're going to see that, oh, there's a nice, you know, ginger or peach here. That's going to go really good with bourbon. Ginger and peach go really great, you know. Think about mint smashes, you know, fresh mint, peach, you know, peach mint smash, pretty delicious.
I think that goes, Troy, with something one of our members once told me. He said, the best drink in the world is your favorite drink, no matter what it is.
I think my favorite drink is whatever someone hands me, right? One I don't have to make, you know, neat. But this sangria, hopefully this was helpful for people, and the recipes that we can put up for everyone can really break things down for you to give you starting points. Think about what you have, what you don't have, what you need, and then using things that you typically wouldn't use, meaning like those teas in your cabinets that allows you to batch things out and make lots and lots more for people when they're coming over. And then it can be self-serve, because there's nothing worse than entertaining people and having to constantly make everyone drinks. You want to be able to set it and forget it. Put it in a punch bowl, put it in a pitcher, and allow the conversation to be had instead of being in the kitchen making drinks for everybody, because then you lose that social aspect.
If there aren't any more questions, Troy, I really appreciate your time. Thanks for coming on and making this great cocktail with us. I hope everybody out there enjoyed learning a few tips from Troy, and I hope you'll all enjoy us for the next one in a few weeks as we work our way through summer and work our way through a list of cocktails.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Dawson. Thank you so much for having me. And I hope everyone has a safe and awesome 4th of July. And we continue to see some good momentum, and we work through these challenging times. So thank you so much.